Antifa, the truth behind the mask. A look into the domestic terror organization Antifa and how it is attempting to take over the current peaceful protests of the George Floyd death. Oh, this should be glorious. So, Fox News, take it away.
The interesting thing about Antifa is that it's not an organization. It is a philosophy and an ideology. Antifa believes that it's morally justifiable to attack people simply because you disagree with them politically.
The protests surrounding the death of George Floyd have put a newfound spotlight on Antifa as peaceful protests turned into riots in major American cities. Largely because of the police deciding that they were sick of the protesters being there, and so they brought out tear gas and rubber bullets.
Within Antifa itself, there's a lot of different groups that you'll find. A lot of the members may do it for animal rights or for anti-capitalism, pro-socialism. Personally, when I was in Antifa, a lot of the activism I did was for animal rights. But once they come together in the black...
I like how he explicitly said in the beginning that it's not really an organization, it's just a mode of action, but they still have him labeled as a member of Antifa. And the fact that he's talking like this to Fox News is kind of suspect as well, but yeah, whatever.
Black bloc and behind the black mask, they kind of forget all that. They go for that common goal of silencing whatever their opposition at the moment is. And oftentimes we've seen them silence people simply for political disagreements.
Such as? Because Antifa has largely been responsible for silencing fascists. That's their whole point. That's exactly what they're doing, is they're trying to silence fascists. So please explain how Antifa is responsible for shouting down voices that don't belong to fascists. And Donald Trump has blamed Antifa activists for violence at protests over the death of George Floyd at the hands of a police officer. Never mind, once again, that the vast majority of violence is the result of police instigation. We have this on video. Still funny to me that conservatives simply can't do the brain work to figure out what's going on right now isn't just about one issue, and the people they silence are literal Nazis, and they have killed 0 people. Exactly, Magmill. Yep, all true.
Those who threaten innocent life and property will be arrested, detained, and prosecuted to the full.
So I'm now announcing that all police forces will be arrested by the other police forces who have not harmed property. There's only a few of them left, but they're working on it. Oh wait, no, that's the fever dream I had last night. Sorry.
Fullest extent of the law. This includes Antifa and others who are leading instigators of this violence.
In summer of 2018, I wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal about the 5-week occupation and siege of the immigration.
Andy, no. Okay.
And customs enforcement facility in Portland. And I wrote very critically of what I saw, in addition to the breakdown of law and order in that neighborhood in Southwest. We saw people affiliated with extreme left-wing movements in Portland, like Antifa, terrorizing those who lived in that community. Business owners in those areas, I interviewed those who were affected.
In 2019, conservative journalist Andy Neal was attacked by Antifa during several protests in Portland, Oregon. Yeah, he got a milkshake thrown at him a couple of times, and that just ruined his day, and probably his shirt. Extreme left-wing movements. Healthcare for all, food for you, education for you, get wrecked. Yeah, exactly, Magno. I hadn't heard about NYPD resigning in support Yeah, the 57 officers resigned from the team to support officers. Uh, I mean, I know there's been a lot of people quitting because they just can't keep up with what they're required to try to keep the protesters at bay or whatever. I don't know. That Andy Ngo is gonna, pun intended, milk that fucking milkshake for his entire rest of his life, isn't he?
Things became violent when Antifa amassed at the Cider Riot pub in Northeast Portland for their after party. One of the masked militants.
Isn't the Cider Riot pub the pub that we have at least audio, if not video, of Andy Ngo conspiring with, like, Patriot Prayer or one of those groups to go in and instigate things so that he could film Antifa being violent, even though it was in response to the fascists being violent? Pretty sure that's the pub. Let's check. Let's see. Let me check out videos here. Okay. Yeah. There's an contact the Mercury asking for retraction, saying that denies certain claims made by a source quoted in this article. The Mercury stands by its reporting. Good, good. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah, you're not. We just want to get off the road so we don't all sit fucking standing out there. Yeah. We didn't talk to the stay on the bike. Is he cool? I think they're lurking around.
Yeah.
On the bike?
kid?
Oh, yeah.
Cider Riot. Yeah, this is called Cider Riot, and warned the side about Patriot Prayer's plan. Then films the group loaded a few blocks away from Cider Riot. Yeah. So the specific instance he's talking about here is one where he specifically worked with Patriot Prayer to make sure there was going to be an issue.
A patron from the pub ran from the property directly to me and sprayed me with a chemical that blinded me and burnt my skin on my face. From there, the following month, at the end of June, was when I was beaten.
Love how they just let him tell his side of the story and ignore the fact, again, that he was rolling up with a bunch of people planning to cause a problem. And that it was probably, like, civilian pepper spray or something. I mean, that shit hurts. I'm not going to say that he's, that it isn't meant to disable or what have you, but you were there to literally cause violence, Andy. You get what you get. You get what you put in.
And robbed in the now infamous incident that was partially captured on video. This park right here to the left is where.
Oh yeah, I gotta disavow Antifa. They're using those famous chemical weapons of silly string, eggs, and milkshakes. I mean, we all know those are denied by the Geneva Convention. I mean, and a good thing too. So many people have died from being hit with silly string and milkshakes. Not like the perfectly safe tear gas that the police are using on protesters all over the country, that is perfectly safe and legal to use. But fortunately, the Geneva Convention did specifically ban milkshakes and eggs. Has the type of face makes you want to make milkshakes. True, Magmill.
Antifa frequently gathers and meets. On the 29th of June, this whole street had been shut down in an unlawful demonstration by masked Antifa militants and their allies with the Democratic Socialists of America. Before I got to the front of the crowd, probably right around here, because I remember this building with these two iconic sculptures, somebody or something hit me hard on the back of my head and knocked me forward. And before I could even catch my footing, then the punches came from every direction, and all I saw were fists and people dressed in black, people wearing masks. I remember trying to block my face, and they just kept hitting the back of my head and the top of my head when I thought it was over.
I love how even in this video, it doesn't look like he got hit at all by anything except the aforementioned milkshake, eggs, and silly string. I mean, maybe someone punched him, maybe someone pushed him and he felt like a punch. I'm not going to completely deny that some people might have thrown a punch. But he definitely was not beset by a crowd to pummel the shit out of him like the video of someone. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, he looks embarrassed, but yeah. Did y'all see this fucking video?
He's trying to fucking help! Get the phone! You gotta pull the cops! Smash it!
Keep in mind, we've got one protester, and pretty much everyone else here are Proud Boys. You can see, you can just kind of make it out here. He's got the trim around his collar. This guy's got the Proud Boy polo on.
Let him go! Get my phone back! Go! Let him go!
There's another Proud Boy polo. His jacket's got the Proud Boy rooster on it, and I think that hoodie has it on the front too.
Stay the fuck away! Hey! Stay the fuck away! Back the fuck up!
Look at this dude getting out of his mom's minivan to swing his baton like he's been practicing in the basement all week.
Back up! Come on! Take your phone away from here! He stole my phone! You have your phone? Yeah! Call the fucking cops! Right now! Hey! Step the fuck away! He's got the phone in his hand! Step the fuck away! Step the fuck away! Step the fuck away! I never threw a blow. Hey, you got that right? Hey, leave! I'm coming for you. You ready?
I never noticed before, there's no tags on the car. That's convenient.
You right, man? You okay?
I mean, I'm shaking, but
What happened?
So yeah. That is not what happened to Andy Neal. A few people closed in, covered him in embarrassing liquids, and then let him go.
Then next came this hailstorm of milkshakes, eggs, and other hard objects.
Milkshakes, eggs, and other hard objects. Silly string, milkshakes, and eggs. You know, we literally refer to things that are very fragile as eggs. When you're trying to walk quietly so you don't disturb someone, it's referred to as walking on eggshells because of how fragile they are. If you're that hurt about getting hit with eggs, Andy, then maybe you should see a dermatologist about your ultra-thin skin.
I was drenched head to toe, I was bleeding, my earlobe was ripped, my eyes were swelling with blood. I just kept walking thinking at any point police are going to come and help me. They never did. The city has had, by this point, years.
Yeah, because they already helped by helping out your buddies in Patriot Prayer and the Proud Boys. Portland police have a long-standing issue with collaborating with white supremacist groups, unfortunately.
Of
Not surprisingly, though.
protests that turn into riots, and they still have not learned from any of the mistakes of the past. They have not evolved and changed their policing tactics. Over and over, it's always what is now a mantra for them, that they will not go in to intervene because it could incite the mob.
What? We literally have video. When does this video This video just came out less than a week ago. Attorney General William Barr said the Department of Justice will treat violence by individuals associated with Antifa as domestic terrorism. Oh boy. So for anyone playing along at home who doesn't get what that means, since Antifa is not really an organization, there are Antifa organizations, especially in Portland. Rose City Antifa is a thing. But since people behaving in an Antifa mode are not a member of an organization, but just taking part in anti-fascist action, what this means is that they can very easily label anyone who is protesting against fascism as domestic terrorism. This is our government effectively saying, yes, we are a fascist government. We will crack down on anyone acting in an anti-fascist manner. I mean, they want to claim the title of fascist, we will happily relieve them of that title.
Such senseless acts of anarchy are not exercises of First Amendment rights. They are crimes designed to terrify fellow citizens and intimidate communities. There are groups that exploit the opportunity to engage in such crimes as looting. We have evidence that Antifa and other similar extremist groups have been involved in instigating and participating in the violent activity.
Funny, we have more evidence that your own police force have been the instigators in many of the riots that have taken place in cities around the country in the last few weeks. So, any action on that? No, of course not. Trump and several police officials have blamed Antifa for the recent looting and vandalism that have occurred amid peaceful protests over the death of George Floyd. Of course they have. Some experts say the most common place to find political correctness in Antifa is on college campuses. Notice that conflation there. Political correctness and Antifa. Now, political correctness, I'm kind of torn about political correctness because it is often used as sort of civility policing for people, trying to say that what you're saying isn't politically correct, so you shouldn't say it, even if it's, actually correct, but maybe not said in the best way or a little edgier or rougher than they're ready to handle. But conflating political correctness and Antifa is basically just double dog whistling to the anti-SJW crowd, the people who maybe agree with anti-racist sentiments, but don't like political correctness or what have you. So this is a very interesting conflation right here. That other extremist group line is literally so they can still strip you of habeas corpus as a terrorist, even if you aren't provably associated with Antifa? Yeah, exactly.
The first order of business is you have to cut off the wellspring where their ideology comes from.
And it's coming from the university. It's coming from academic departments.
And now we have the anti-intellectualism. The universities are just hotbeds of leftist groupthink and indoctrination. I mean, there's a reason why leftism and socialism has continued to survive in academia. And it's not because universities and colleges are indoctrinating people into these beliefs. It's because those beliefs are based in academia and have a basis in logic and evidence and rationality. So that's the major difference between socialism and fascism. Fascism is a reaction to mostly the capitalist, the antagonisms of capitalism. Fascism rose out of the Great Depression and the issues that we were having worldwide in the 20s and 30s. Socialism was a theory developed by college people, by college educated people, to explain a natural progression out of capitalism, a way we can better improve things using logic and provable, testable theories. So that's why there's so many leftists and socialists in academia and very few fascists, although we'll get to one here a little bit later. Universities are hotbeds of neoliberalism. It's actually pretty difficult to find a far leftist professor that is willing to speak out in the classroom directly. Yeah, I believe that. Because a lot of people are more willing to I'm not explaining this properly. Basically, what I'm saying is that there's a lot of people, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Magno, in university who have that very liberal end of history mindset, that if you talk about anything to the left of Bill Clinton, then you're just trying to undermine America or whatever. And that's true now, Dodge. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of leftists are in academia, even if, as Magno said, they can't really speak about it openly for various reasons.
Our universities are teaching people totally deranged ideas, anti-democratic ideas, and it's not just that they're far left ideas. They're ideas that are untethered to reality, dealing with race and gender and trans.
Such as? I mean, you started to talk about trans people, so obviously we're going to get into... well, probably won't actually get into it because this is completely absent of any details or corroborating evidence. But, yeah.
Issues, for example, things that revolve around identity. They're teaching people these ideas. They're not hearing other sides of the coin. So they're all in their little safe spaces. They don't hear anything.
God, this fucking... Safe spaces are meant to be places where people can go and not... Safe spaces were created as places where people could go and not... and be free of any harassment. If someone came in and was, insulting or belittling people, they would be removed. It's specifically a place where people can be safe. No one is trying to make colleges themselves safe space. Well, I'm sure there are some people who want to make colleges safe spaces where no one disagrees or whatever, but that's not how you create good intellectual rigor. And that's just it. Good intellectual rigor is based on debate and dispute and dissenting opinions. Yeah, if you go to school for English to make more money, you done fucked up. True.
And then when they do encounter something, they're so brittle, he's a Nazi. He's got to be a Nazi. Punch him. We got to overthrow the fascists.
It has to do with the fact that so many college administrators and college campuses that allow Antifa to work under their noses. We don't allow ISIS to recruit on college campuses, and we should not allow Antifa to do that either.
Why? Again, Antifa is not an organization. They're not recruiting. If anyone is talking about anti-fascist action, you have to explain why that's a bad thing. And the only reason why anti-fascist action would be a bad thing is if you're a fascist. Peter Boghossian is a philosopher and assistant professor at Portland State University. He published a study that proved how academia accepted studies that were overtly supportive of extreme grievances. Okay. Such as? And even so, academia's whole point is to accept studies that, if an academic institution, from my understanding, rejects a study because they disagree with the proposal or conclusion just out of hand, like if someone wrote a study about racism in America and the professor or the department rejected it because racism is over, that's a problem. I mean, this is why Fox News is so successful, because they make blanket claims that, and then they never show an example, so it just leaves it in the mind of the viewer to think of what they mean by that. I mean, extreme grievances could be things like trans people are valid. That's apparently an extremist belief in America these days. Or maybe capitalism doesn't work. That's an extremist view. But it's backed up by data. It's like saying, hey, we found that your literary critique department is only accepting journal articles that are critical. Checkmate libtards. Yeah. I don't regret it, Dodge, but then I had no intention of making money from my degrees. Well, that's good.
Almost all of them are explicitly involved in it. It's less so universities, and it's more so particular departments within universities. We call these grievance studies, departments that teach students to look for grievances everywhere. Racial grievances, gender grievances, any kind of perceived or historical injustice.
So I'm assuming what he's referring to is how when you learn about things like systemic racism, systemic sexism, etc., you start to kind of see these first. You see these all over. There's a famous quote from Anita Sarkeesian where it's clipped out of context, because what she's saying is something to the effect of, I first started learning about systems and whatever, and when you start learning about that, you see that everything is racist, everything is sexist, everything is homophobic, and you have to tell everyone about it, and that's usually where it gets cut off. But she went on to talk about how she annoyed all her friends that way, and this is true. When you start learning about these systems, these problems, you start recognizing it everywhere. And it takes some time to learn that pointing it out every time is just going to make people pissed at you. You have to pick your battles. You have to find the ones that are worth fighting and the best way to fight them. Just pointing out that every little thing is racist doesn't help, because even if it's true, even if you are legitimately pointing out every little racist thing, you're going to turn into the boy who cried wolf. people are going to treat you like, yeah, you just think everything's racist. Even though everything kind of is, it doesn't help your case if no one will listen to you.
But these are coming from very specific departments. The nucleation point would be women's studies, gender studies, anything with the word studies in it. But when you look at it in terms of race or gender, and you train people to perennially think about grievances, they've been aggrieved, how can we overthrow this? There's oppression everywhere. You create some very unhappy, very dyspeptic people who...
So this is where the status quo can't stand anyone who recognizes that the status quo is racist, misogynist, homophobic, and transphobic. If you point that out, then you're just looking for grievances. And it's like, yeah. Because 1,000 years of white male Judeo-Christian supremacy has created a lot of grievances. And we want to correct those. We want to make life better for everyone.
Who manifest that through physical violence and silencing others, right? These are not people, these are not open-minded people who like to listen to you and engage ideas. The university explicitly states, at Portland State University's Women's Studies page, the word activist or some variant thereof is found 7 times. We are creating...
What's wrong with that? See, again, this is that neoliberal end of history. We're at the end, well, neoconservative since it's Fox News, but there's not much difference between neoliberal and neoconservative ultimately. We are at the end of history. We can't, this is the ideal society. Why are we trying to agitate and change it? This is the ideal, perfect society. And if you're trying to change it, you're trying to break it. And by demonizing the very idea of activism, of trying to change things, they're further cementing this society as the perfect one. Unless something changes a whole lot in our education system, I'll discourage my kid from going to college and say it's a clear plan, a major that actually makes bank. Otherwise, college is a way to saddle people with debt the second they can sign a contract. Yeah?
Activist students. And what are they activists for? They're activists to find grievances in literally...
Hey, Golden Gray, thanks. I appreciate it. That's follower number 50, boys.
Everything.
I don't really have any strong feelings towards them or against them. As a group, it's about some of the individuals that act out in extreme ways, especially in regards to like reacting with violence. That's the stuff that I start to kind of get a check on.
I guess like I agree with their message that like neo-Nazis should be stopped, but I don't know if I really agree about violence.
On one hand, I'd say hit the Nazis, go for it. On another hand, I think I would probably want to go on a case by case because I don't know the context of Antifa to that degree.
I do have reservations about their methods at times. That being said, I mean, even though I have mixed feelings about their methods, I do stand for what they are talking about, and so I do support that.
It's a very...
It does, me and Wayne, yep.
Loosely organized group, and they have sort of a unique or unusual system of communication and organization. There appear to be sources of funding, and we are looking into the sources of funding. And there is clearly some high degree of organization involved at some of these events, and coordinated tactics that we're seeing, and we're looking into that as well.
Despite claims by President Trump and Attorney General Barr, some reports show the violence stemming from recent demonstrations in the wake of George Floyd's death has not been linked so far to anti-fascist activists known as Antifa. Who slipped this slide in? Who did this? I can't believe Fox News told the truth like this and referred to Antifa as anti-fascist like that. Like, holy shit, this is like the one slide of truth in this whole video. 51 protesters facing federal charges, yet no sign of Antifa involvement. Yeah, federal arrest showed no sign that Antifa plotted protests. Yeah. That's just it. There's no sign that Antifa is deliberately causing this violence. They're responding to violence caused against them. So, yeah. As expected, this is 10 minutes of lies with one frame of reality thrown on at the end when they know that everyone who agrees with them has already stopped watching. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment because it helps me. Subscribe and ring that bell to help you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.